You may need an organ transplant if one of your organs has failed. This can happen because of an illness or injury. When you have an organ transplant, doctors remove an organ from another person and place it in your body. The organ may come from a living donor or a donor who has died. The organs that can be transplanted include heart, intestines, kidney, liver, lung, and pancreas. You often have to wait a long time for an organ transplant. Doctors must match donors to recipients to reduce the risk of transplant rejection. Rejection happens when your immune system attacks the new organ. If you have a transplant, you must take drugs for the rest of your life to help keep your body from rejecting the new organ.
There are 4 different types of transplants, one of which include allografts, which are tissue transplanted from one genetically distinct individual into another within the same species. Another is an isograft, in which tissue is transplanted from one twin into another. If they are monozygotic or genetically identical, the tissue will not be rejected. Another type of transplant is an autograft, in which tissue is transplanted from one area of an individual into another part of the same individual. An example of this type of graft is a skin graft. Xenografts are transplants in which tissue from an animal is transplanted into a human.
Is an organ transplant a normal or abnormal response? Organ transplant rejection is a normal immune response because the immune system works by differentiating self from non-self and destroys everything identified as non-self. The cell-mediated response is as follows. When a person receives an organ transplant, their immune system recognizes the cells that are foreign or non-self, triggering the immune system to attack and kill the cells of the organ they have received. Major histocompatibility complex markers located on the outside of the body's cells allow the body's immune cells to distinguish between cells that are self and non-self, or MHC1 and MHC2, identified as human leukocyte antigens, also called HLAs. HLAs on tissue that are presented into an individual's body are genetically different from those present in the tissue of that individual. The tissue is recognized as foreign by the host dendritic cell. Dendritic cells process and present foreign HLAs to host helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells, activating them. The cytotoxic T cells target and kill grafted cells by secreting perforins and destroying cell membranes of target cells.
The humoral response consists of both the primary response and the secondary response. In the primary response, antigen-presenting cells introduce the non-self or donor cell to helper T cells. The helper T cells then secrete interleukins to activate B cells. The B cell then proliferates into memory B cells and plasma cells. Plasma cells secrete antibodies that are specific to the donor's cells, which can activate the complex system, cause agglutination or precipitation, which allows other immune cells, such as macrophages, to perform phagocytosis at a faster rate. In the secondary response, memory B cells proliferate into plasma cells and more memory B cells. The plasma cells secrete antibodies against that specific donor's cells, which leads to what is called hyperacute rejection.
Is this type of immune response permanent, temporary, or recurring? The organ transplant rejection is recurring because the immune system wants to destroy everything that it considers to be non-self. This could mean that the immune system has to attack the same organ multiple times in order to rid the body of all foreign substances. People could experience multiple acute responses and later face chronic rejection. What type of symptoms are experienced by the person who has this response? The organ's functions may start to decrease. The person may experience general discomfort, uneasiness, or ill feeling. They may experience pain or swelling in the area of the organ. They might experience a fever or flu-like symptoms, including chills, body ache, nausea, cough, and shortness of breath.
The 3 different types of rejection are hyperacute rejection, acute rejection, and chronic rejection. Hyperacute rejection happens within hours, humorally mediated, because the body has pre-existing antibodies against graft cells, which is a secondary response. The complement system is activated, resulting in thrombosis in capillaries, preventing vascularization of graft. Acute rejection manifests in the first 6 months after the transplant. Acute cellular rejection is mediated by lymphocytes that have been activated against donor antigens, primarily in the lymphoid tissues of the recipient. The donor's dendritic cells, also called passenger leukocytes, enter the circulation and function as antigen-presenting cells, or APCs. Chronic rejection appears as fibrosis and scarring in all transplanted organs, develops in a month to years after acute rejection. Episodes have been subsided, both antibody and cell mediated.
What is the prognosis of a human with this response? Some organ and tissue transplants are more successful than others. If rejection begins, medicines that suppress the immune system may stop the rejection. However, some people may end up needing to take these medicines for the rest of their lives. Single episodes of acute rejection rarely lead to organ failure, but chronic rejection is the leading cause of organ transplant failure. The organ slowly loses its function and cannot be effectively treated with medicines. As a result, some people may need another transplant.